first thing is we are going to talk about how to choose optional. Now, first thing is, if I talk about the significance of your optional in UPSC. And there are two eras with respect to the significance of the optionals, and I would say these two eras are, the significance of the optionals was 2012, or I would say up to 2012, and second era, if you talk about, it is from 2013. So up to 2012, if you talk about the significance of the optional, it was hugely significant, hugely significant. Why I am saying this? Because if you go back till 2010, optional was also there in your prelims. One optional you had to choose as a part of your prelims as well. So it had huge role to play in your prelims selection. In mains, you had to choose another optional. So two optional had to be taken. 600, it used to be 600, one optional, 600 other optional. There was two papers of GS, 600 again, and there was an essay paper which was 300. So GS plus essay, this was, and this was your optionals. There were two optionals. Clearly you can understand that here in this part, optional is a kind of area where you can predict. Syllabus of GS is very, very wide. Okay? Syllabus of the general studies is very wide. So when it comes to prediction, making exact prediction of the question in general studies, it is a difficult task, very, very difficult task. Even if the same theme is in news, so many type of variety of questions can be asked. What happens with the case of optionals? Because in optional there is a fixed syllabus, and more or less the questions would be hovering around that fixed syllabus. So it becomes comparatively easier in the optionals to predict what would be questions that would be asked. Clearly you can understand in the previous regime which was there, 1200 marks was optional. So if you are able to score out of this 1200, suppose around 700 or 650 to 700 marks here, okay, which was not so much difficult, then most of your task is already done. Because in essay you will, out of 300 you will get 40-50% marks, itna ho jata tha. And in GS, which was around 600, again more or less you will get between 300 to 400 marks. Okay? So kul milakar ke, if you can get here something like 450 overall, or I would say not 450, 400 plus marks, then it was sure shot that you will get an interview call, and most probably you will get selected in the interview, or finally you will get the call if you are able to score this one. And clearly you can understand, in dono ko milakar ke you just had to score 400 plus, and here this much. So very clearly the significance of the optionals used to be very, very high. Now beyond 2013, what has happened now, there was change in the pattern of mains. GS weightage was increased. In fact, a glimpse of this we got in 2012. 2012, what happened? People got very low marks in the optionals, and the selection was dominated by the people who did well in their GS and essay. So that dominated the selection because overall optional में सबके बहुत कम आ गए थे 2012 में. And next year they changed the pattern and clearly they increased the significance of general studies in the selection, weightage of general studies. So now you know from here there is only one optional. So optional now comprises your 500 marks, and if you talk about GS, how much marks for GS? It is now double of this, 1000 marks. There are 4 papers, 250 marks each, 1000 marks for GS. And if you talk about your essay, again it is 250 marks. So very clearly here you can see there is 1250 marks and here there is just 500 marks. Okay? So if you comparatively, the regime of exam since 2013 is a regime where you have to, where the significance of optional has little bit declined. But again I am using the word comparative, ये बात याद रखना. Compared to the previous regime of the exam, it has declined. There is no doubt about that. However, even in this regime we find that optionals continue to play very, very dominant role. And how they continue to play very dominant role. What has happened in case of GS? GS paper is very generic and highly dynamic. And how many of you have seen this year essay paper? किसी ने देखा है 2020 मेंस जो हुआ था, which was actually conducted in January because of the COVID, January 2021. Anyone has seen the essay paper? किसी ने देखा है? हाँ या ना तो बोलो यार. So tell me, Deepak, if you have seen that, did you find one thing which was very surprising in the essay paper? Did you find very important thing that how many generic and very philosophical personal based themes were there? ठीक है, very personal themes were there to be answered, and those type of themes it is very difficult to prepare them. What you will be doing is you will be writing, yes, so much philosophical personal based themes, and those type of essays you cannot prepare them. You have to produce them in the examination itself. Okay? Or when we are saying philosophical based, you have to understand, keep essay is something which is like, it is very general. So ये सोचना कि suppose किसी का philosophy है and he will be getting an edge in such type of essays, it is totally wrong. I always advise my students that if you have a geography optional, don't write answers, essays related with geography. You can use many of the concepts, but don't write the essay which is directly coming from your optional or which looks like directly coming from the optional, because generally what will happen, you will become technical. Unknowingly, you will become technical. And that is not the way to write the essay. Unknowingly, you will write kind of ready-made essay, which will not be tailor-made. And if you do so, then what will happen? Your marks would be reduced. Okay? So those were the themes where innovation, your personal thinking will be very much rewarded. So what has happened with GS and essay? It is something like whoever is well prepared with the core aspects of preparation, the range of marks that would be variable here would be, and I am talking about most of the students who are very serious students who are well preparing. So the range of marks that generally vary here is at maximum 50 to 100 marks. On the other hand, in this optional, again the same thing happens. The range of marks that is variable just within 500 marks, it is again ranging between 50 to 100. Can you understand this point which I am saying? Tell me. So what I am just trying to say is, although optional just comprises 500 marks, but this is an area which can be prepared thoroughly. Okay? This is an area which can be prepared very thoroughly, and because of that you can actually make an edge, very sure shot edge here of 50 to 100 marks, because majority of the students which we see in the optionals, their score hovers around between 210 to 240. This is the majority score. And generally speaking, if you just leave an aberration year, which was, I would say 2019 was a kind of aberration year, जिसमें सभी optional के marks थोड़े decrease हो गए. All the optionals saw this decline in marks. So till, if you just take 2018 तक का sample size अगर मैं लूँ, I'm not taking 2019 because what happened in 2019, it is not sure it will again continue in 2020. If it continues in 2020, then we'll also take that into account. But till 2018, if you look, the selected students' marks used to be generally 290 plus. Okay? So this is, and I'm talking about, this is those who got good ranks. Generally have this kind of score. And if you talk about overall, it was 275 plus those of the students who got ultimately selected. Okay? So here you see very well, what you can do is you can easily make a margin of which can range between 50 to 100 marks. And you know, so many students have got every year, like for example, हमारे यहाँ से 2017 में भी 327 marks थे, highest which was there in geography, and this was also in 2017, 2018, ठीक है. 2019 में, it, as I said, it was aberration year. Highest marks जो geography का था, it was 301. So it was Nimish Patil, ठीक है, who got this marks, and this was the highest marks in geography optional. So overall, जैसा मैंने बोला है कि 20-25 नंबर सबके कम हो गए. So it was across all the optional, not only with geography. So what I am just trying to say is, here, because things are more sure, we can more predict, we can be more prepared. So here we can make actually a difference which is 50 to 100 marks difference can be made if we prepare well. And both essay and if you talk about GS combined, you are making a difference of 50 to 100 marks in this case. So even if you look into from 2013, what I am saying, we find that the optional relevance is still there. So many students come to me who have done well in the mains in their GS part, essay part, and they were unable to do well in the mains optional part, and that was stopping their selection. Even many of them who got selected, but because of low marks in optional, ultimately they couldn't get very good ranks. So ultimately they joined variety of courses that we run, and so many of them ultimately got selected because their marks in the optional improved, or they improved their ranks. Okay? So even in the pattern which is beyond 2013, from 2013, although compared to the previous regime, optional ka significance has reduced, but it is still 50%. That means if you don't choose your optionals properly, if you make a mistake here, then the probability of your selection is going to reduce very drastically. Very, very drastically. And that is the significance of the optionals. Directly, indirectly, बहुत सारे significance हैं, we'll see. ठीक है? I hope I am able to clear this aspect which I was talking about, this 50 to 100 and 50 to 100. Tell me. Yes or no? ठीक है? Now, in this sense, what becomes very crucial, as I said, is choosing the right optionals. So, what are the considerations which should be taken into account while choosing the optional? Okay, and when I'm going to discuss this, I would like you to contribute with me. What are the choices do you think that we should be, or what are the considerations or factors we should take into account while we are choosing our optional subject? Tell me. You can write in the comment box. Okay, so number of you are talking about, first is the interest in the subject. Okay, very good. In fact, I also agree with this, that it is a very, very crucial aspect. Second is I would take this availability of resources. Okay, very, very important. Clearly, if you talk about third very important thing, I would say is the syllabus, nature of syllabus should be taken into account. And with this respect, we can also talk about other things like overlapping with GS can be one, of the consideration that should be taken into account. ठीक है, what else? प्रीवियस ईयर क्वेश्चन पेपर तो सभी में होता है. What else we can talk about? Can I say one more thing I can add up here, like educational background? Yes or no? That can also be one of the factors. For example, suppose you have a good educational background, or you have a subject which was there in your graduation, and you feel very comfortable in that subject. Can I say it is normal that I will have interest in the subject? Yes or no? And I will be quite more comfortable in the subject. Okay, so that is another factor which I think that should be taken into account. अब देखते हैं एक एक करके, because these are the primary factors which should be taken into account while we are choosing our optionals. And let us see that how which is more important, which is less important. Number of things we'll talk about that. In fact इसमें एक और मैं add कर देता हूँ, which is very number of people will talk about, that is the previous year selection trend or performance from the concerned optional. ठीक है, that is also one thing which we can take into account. So one by one हम एक एक करके बात करते हैं. First we are talking about interest in the subject. Interest in the subject. Okay. So first question is, what defines interest? What is essentially defining our interest in the subject? Okay, Gulfam says that proper guidance is something which defines our interest. Okay, I would agree with you. अभी हम उसकी बात करते हैं. And to tell you about the interest in the subject, I'll tell you one small story about myself. If you ask me, if I was, suppose I was sitting with you, if I was sitting on the other side and someone was talking to me that what is your interest in geography? Okay? If someone would ask me what is geography, you know what would have been my answer? My answer would have been, geography is that subject due to which I got less marks in my class 10th in the social sciences, and I couldn't ultimately cross 90% marks in my class 10 in my high school. That would be my answer. That would have been my answer. If I was, suppose, directly coming from college or school level, this would have been my answer. But see, now I am a geography teacher and you know there are very few who know geography like I do. If you are sitting here, you must have heard about me. That is why you are sitting here. So why that answer? The reason was I scored less in my class 10th in geography because I had no interest. And you know why it was so? Because in most of our educational institutions, and I'm talking about even the most elite ones, social sciences has been one of the area which are given least importance. I hope, and I'm sure that most of you would actually agree with me also. If you have been to most of these schools, any of these schools, tell me, wasn't it the same case? In fact, हमारे यहाँ पर I was studying from a school which is the best school of Lucknow. Lucknow is my city, hometown. And who was teaching geography, A teacher who was a primary school English teacher. So उनको कोई geography पढ़ाने को मिला नहीं, तो उन्होंने वो एक प्राइमरी स्कूल की जो हमारी वो इंग्लिश की एक टीचर थी, उनको रख दिया गया कि लो भाई ज्योग्राफी पढ़ा दो, यू टीच ज्योग्राफी. And someone who doesn't has a background in geography, you can understand how that person would be teaching. So our geography classes used to be simply what she used to tell us, one by one stand और read करो, किताब से बस पढ़ते जाओ, read करो. एंड फिर वो होता क्या है, जो पीछे बच्चे वो बैठने वाले जो बच्चे होते हैं हम जैसे लोग, वो फिर क्या करते हैं, वो आई थिंक दैट यू वुड ऑल्सो वुड हैव प्लेड दैट गेम. वो जो किताब से वो क्रिकेट खेलना, वो खोलना एंड 6 आ रहा है, 2 आ रहा है, 4 आ रहा है. आई होप मोस्ट ऑफ यू वुड हैव प्लेड दैट. सो व्हेन यू गेट बोर्ड इन द क्लास, what essentially you will do. So we used to sit on the backside and we used to play cricket with the book. Or in geography class, one of our best games which we used to play was finding locations from the atlas. I hope many of you would have done that also. So one person will look into the atlas and tell you that find this location. So again, ये दो हमारे games बहुत favorite हुआ करते थे when we used to have our geography classes. In that scenario, tell me, can I say, will it not be wrong to define interest about a particular subject? If you don't know about the basics of the subject, don't you think that it would be very wrong to define what is actually interest? ठीक है. So interest in the subject, when you have to think about, in fact someone suggested me when I was thinking about preparation in my graduation, yes, someone suggested me that why you don't you take geography, because geography is a semi scientific type of subject and ultimately there is very good score which people get. But what was my answer to that senior who was telling me this, that I don't interest in geography and it is very a subject which is very descriptive in nature and I don't like to mug up places, so much facts and figures, so I don't think I will do well in geography. That was my answer. And again he just gave me one suggestion. I actually followed that suggestion and see, here I am now a geography teacher. And what was the simple suggestion of that person? He simply suggested me one thing, that you just go through class 6th till class 10th NCERT books of geography, you read them properly with seriousness and then you judge whether your aptitude is good for geography or not. And I was at that time very confused which subject, क्योंकि उस समय एक ही नहीं लेना होता था, 2 लेने होते थे. You can understand, you can judge. So one, I had already made up my mind that I will be taking up public administration. Reason, what was the reason of me choosing PubAd? Someone told me that its syllabus is very short. So हम सभी को shortcut चाहिए होते हैं भाई. We all have been trained, particularly in our education system, the kind of pathetic education system that we have, to ultimately search only for shortcuts rather than doing things well. Jugaad. So one of the jugads which I thought would work would be a short syllabus. But second option, I was very confused. So I had some things in my mind, like for example, I was thinking about taking some subjects like economics was in my mind, because I was BCom basically. So one of the subjects which was in my mind was economics. There was other optionals, like there was history was one of the optionals which I was thinking, and geography. इन्हीं तीनों में से मुझे basically choose करना था. Ultimately, I started to read the NCERTs of these three subjects. Finally, I decided that I will be taking up geography. But mind it, I read NCERTs of all these three before I decided that finally I will be taking up geography. And to me, geography appeared to be more scientific than the other two, much more scientific than the other two. And although it was BCom was my graduation subject, but I was basically a science background student. So till class 12th, I had physics, chemistry and math. So my mind was a bit more scientific type bent was there. So that logical reasoning and rational line of thought was one thing which attracted me most. And clearly geography was one of the subjects which offered me this more than the others. I am not saying that others were not on this line. I am just saying that geography offered more scienticism than the others, and that attracted me towards geography. Ultimately, I chose geography as my first optional. Earlier, I had thought I will be taking up PubAd as my first optional, but later I chose geography as my first optional, and PubAd was actually became my second optional. In fact, by that time I was already doing my masters. I had started my masters in public administration. So you see what happened actually with respect to the interest. What actually happened is, as I read, I understood well. And in this understanding, as this understanding improved, my interest in the subject kept on growing. In fact, if you ask me really, it reached to a point where it also became a barrier for me in the selection in UPSC. How it became a barrier? You know, when you become too much interested in one thing, you will spend most of your time in doing that thing only. In the process, you will lose the balance of preparation, balance of time allotment, which is the key in success for UPSC. I wasn't able to keep that balance. I got so much engrossed in geography. And uska outcome you can understand. I became a teacher with very well conceptual knowledge, technical knowledge with respect to geography. And the downside was I finally couldn't get selected. Okay. So I hope you get what I'm trying to explain in when it comes to the interest in the subject. So my question is, no matter what your background is there, because you see, most of the people, we choose our backgrounds without particular thought about our interest. Yes or no? Tell me. How many of you can say that you did your graduation or class 11, 12th solely on the basis of your interest and not taking into account other factors like कौन सा subject लेने से या कौन सा field लेने से will get job, security and all those kind of factors? How many of us can say that we did our graduation solely based on our interest? I would say that very few. Very, very few people. Okay, so same thing applies here as well, even if you have other background. In general, it doesn't means that you cannot develop interest in other subject. Maybe as you read, as you go on, ultimately what will happen, your interest will be even more than your primary subject of your graduation. And you talk to your seniors, most of them who are preparing, they will tell you the same thing. Today they must have forgotten about their graduation subjects. In fact, many of them come to us when they ultimately get the interview call. One of the biggest problem that they are facing is how to prepare the graduation subjects, because maybe some questions they can ask you in the interview from the graduation subject as well, because you have spent 3 years, 4 years, even 5 years in that, depending upon the field which you chose. Okay, so very clear thing is how I will essentially think about in which subject I am interested in, and the best way of developing the interest, thinking about the interest, is you start reading the NCERT. Read the NCERTs. Okay, and I would suggest class 6th to 10th is the ideal NCERT level which you should be reading. If you can go up to 12th, there is no problem in that, but 6th to 10th is something which is elementary, compulsory, which you have to read. Okay, and depending upon where you are confused, whether just like I was confused between history, geography and economics, so maybe some of you are also confused with respect to this. So you check your interest by reading these NCERTs, and along with reading of NCERTs, once you have read these NCERTs, you also look into the, once you have done with that, you also look into the previous year questions which have been asked in UPSC, and just look into whether you think you will be able to answer them. I am not saying right answers, I am not saying that you have to be perfect, I am just saying that do you understand the question which is being asked? Are you able to grasp the questions which have been asked? If you are able to do so, then think that the subject which we are talking about, you can develop a good interest in that. In fact, interest in the subject is also depends upon your mentor or the teacher. That is another factor which you should be taking into consideration. So if you get a teacher who can develop that interest about the particular subject in you, again you are at a very, very good place. Okay. So that is first thing that you have to take into account when it comes to the interest in the subject. Availability of resources is the second factor which we have to take into account, and for me, if you ask me, it is a very, very crucial aspect. And in availability of resources, number of things I can talk about these resources, like reading material, which can be books, which can be notes, and very importantly, other things like coaching classes or good available teachers in that. All these are very, very crucial factors when it comes to choosing your optional. You have to look into this. Like for example, there are some optionals, like you talk about optionals like geology. एक geography से काफ़ी मिलता जुलता अलग है बहुत, but still there is one subject, geology, and many students come to me that if I take geology, then there would be also advantage in the forest services, because forest services ka exam when you are writing, there is no geography, but there is geology, science based subject. And some also take that. Biggest issue that they face, I have seen students converting from geology to geography because of some overlappings. And what was the biggest thing that they were facing was that there was hardly this. Books to hain, there were lots of books, but the problem with books is that books are not essentially designed according to the examination. Most of the books would be what they are like either research type books, or they are simply cut paste books which are not able to give you the essence of what you have to do from the examination point of view. So what was their main problem? They didn't had the notes, they didn't had the classes and teachers who could tell them what mistakes they were doing. And because of that, ultimately later on, finally they decided that they'll quit in civil services, that optional, and they'll be changing that optional. And many came to me because they found geography to be very close to geology. So having this kind of availability of resources is very crucial. Now, एक simple सा और example देता हूँ. You take the case of geography itself. You take up most of the year's selection results from geography, and what you will be finding that compare करो English medium students results and those who are writing from Hindi medium. ठीक है? You will be finding that the results, almost 95% of the results which are there, and this is not only with respect to geography, this is with respect to most of the optionals. You will be finding that most of the results, at least 90% of the results are coming from where? They are coming from the English medium. Very less from the Hindi medium. And why it is so? Why it is so? Simple reason here is the availability of resources. It is unfortunate that in Hindi medium there is hardly a resource which can match the level of resources which are available in the English medium. It is not that the students of Hindi medium unke paas kam dimag hai, they are not smart enough. Everything is there. The thing is, they haven't got the right direction, where to go. Because the main thing is, books, they are not written according to the examination point of view. So you will have to take into account this factor of availability of resources. This is very, very crucial. When you'll see that, in fact, sometimes I can say you that availability of resources can become more important than even your interest in the subject. I have seen people who didn't get the optional very well, but still they had good material and they had good mugging up power. They could mug up properly. And they mugged their class notes, they went into the examination and they did very well. ठीक है? And ये particularly 2013 से पहले का जो पैटर्न था उसमें बहुत ज़्यादा था. Because earlier the questions used to be more straightforward. If you have seen the previous year question papers, you must be knowing what I am saying. Today the question paper has become little more dynamic, so that is why the interest factor is also very, very crucial. And that is why I have written it earlier. So availability of resource is another factor which is there. Then if you talk about the third factor, nature of the syllabus. Nature of the syllabus. Now, if you look into the nature of the syllabus, there are a number of things which come to our mind. I would look into the length and time duration of the syllabus. Okay. Other things like technicalities associated with the syllabus. Okay. Other aspects like overlapping with GS, that is another aspect of the nature of the syllabus that I will be taking into account. Okay. So you will be finding variety of type of optionals. Other things like technicalities में मैं इतना बता देता हूँ, like you can understand that the subject can be scientific, which is fully scientific, it can be semi-scientific, and it can be philosophical. Can you understand? So, scientific subjects, you know, most of the scientific subjects which are there, the technical subjects. Here, semi-scientific, I would say most social sciences are there, and philosophical में some social sciences, like अगर मैं बोलूँ तो some of the social sciences like philosophy, to some extent sociology, and other subjects like many of the literature subjects have more or less philosophical nature. Okay. So nature of the syllabus is also very crucial factor. Now, length and time of preparation crucial, because there is no doubt that we would like to complete the optionals as fast as possible. Okay. But when it comes to length and time of duration of the optional, you have to take into account what is desired and what is reality. You have to differentiate what is actually desired and what is reality. So, you know, many this is a market, and in the market, if you go to a shopkeeper, tell me what the shopkeeper would say. Can I say कि shopkeeper would give you fancy promises? He would like to judge your mind what you want, and accordingly he will basically answer. He would try to lure you. And one thing which we have learned from now up till now is that our education system has been such that it wants shortcuts. So teachers will tell you कि मेरे पास एक magic stick है और वो मैं ऐसे घुमाऊंगा, and ultimately you will come out as an IAS officer. They will tell you very fancy things about their subject, that this is there, and ultimately if you choose my subject, we'll finish in this much of time, etc., etc. You have to actually look into the reality, and to understand reality, what you have to look into? You have to look into the previous year questions plus the syllabus. You judge the reality by this. Try to just go through that. Then you will actually understand what is the reality. And to be very honest, there is no optional which can be prepared, I think, which if you want to prepare all the areas and want to be more sure about your preparation, there is no optional which can be covered in less than 4 months, 5 months. Give minimum time. Geography even takes more time. Geography is an optional which is ultimately taking more time. Now, suppose I choose an optional which is taking more time. Like अगर मैं choose करूँ, so suppose I choose an optional which is suppose chemistry, it takes lots of time, and I am choosing between geography. ठीक है. So second very important factor which I will take into account is the overlapping with GS. There can be a situation where in case of chemistry, can I say there is minimal overlapping? Yes or no? In case of geography, there is high overlapping. So tell me, if I am giving more time here, for optional, can I say I will have to give more time for GS separately? सीधी सी बात है, क्योंकि GS तो कवर करना ही है. In this case, if you are giving more time to the optional, part of the time which is required for GS would also be covered in that. That means overall time that you will be devoting for the option for the GS would become what? Would become lesser. You'll get so much of variety. If you're suppose studying social sciences, tell me, the information which I am getting in social sciences, do you think that this information from GS, social sciences, this is the information which will help me in writing good essay? Yes or no? Obviously yes. Okay. So that is another thing that I will be taking into account. When I am talking about technicalities, अब यहाँ पर देखो क्या होता है that suppose there is a question. Can I say that this question can be 3 categories? It can be scientific, it can be semi-scientific, and it can be philosophical. 3 broad categories में हम questions को divide कर सकते हैं. Now, tell me, if I have to score in a scientific type of question, can I say in this case there would be only 2 options that I would have. One is either there is only 2 options, I know the answer or I don't know. Yes or no? बताओ मुझे. There are only 2 options. Either you know it or you don't know it. So if you don't know, if the paper is surprising, suppose that year, can I say that there is very less chance that I will be able to use my creativity and answer that question. In case I know, there is high chance that I will get high marks, because my answer will match with the model answer which the examiner has in his mind, because इसमें fix है the subject matter. ठीक है, but in case the paper is surprising, even after many years of my hard work, there is a high chance that I will get less marks because I did not know. And here, if I did not know, there is no role of creativity. In case of semi-scientific, there are options which increase. Some of the questions are very fixed, like theory. They'll ask you Weber's industrial location theory. You will have to write which you know. So here again, there would be a situation where I know is one, then there is I don't know. अगर पढ़ा नहीं है तो there is a chance that you don't know also. Like अगर geography के पेपर को उठा के देखोगे, there were questions which students didn't knew. Like 2017 or 18 में 17 में I think pave theory. अब वो pave theory was like a surprising bullet. Most of the teachers also didn't know what was pave theory. So there can be one or two questions which you don't know, but majority here is what? Majority of the questions is in between, which you know, but using your creativity you have to write good answers. ठीक है? And if you, because here also in semi-scientific there would be a demand of the question, there would be a fixed, more or less fixed subject matter. Here just you have to add your creativity and increase your marks. ठीक है? Suppose एक क्वेश्चन पूछा जाता है that iron and steel industry location. ठीक है? Tell me. This is suppose a question एक पूछा जाता है कि इसको explain करना है using raw material. Tell me, can I say हम when we'll study geography we'll study one model Weber industrial location. Theory. So in Weber's industrial location theory, we'll see that Weber says कि depending upon the type of raw material R1, R2 and market, the location of industry would be decided. In case of iron ore, the location of the industry would be more near to raw material because they are weight losing raw material. अभी नहीं समझ में आएगा, but this is the case. Now tell me, अगर मैं इंडिया में अगर सपोज करो आयरन एंड स्टील इंडस्ट्री की लोकेशन को समझा रहा हूँ, can I say I can talk about the major iron and steel industries which are there, and suppose I am talking about Jamshedpur, Tisco. So can I say that here Kolkata will become my market? Here if I talk about here Jharia is the coal which is present, and here Singhbhum is the iron ore. So tell me, can I say that it is obvious that industry is located where? Can I say it is obvious that industry is located here at Jamshedpur? Yes or no? So can you see, it was a type of question जिसका एक fixed answer है. So if I am writing that fixed answer, I will get marks. But there is also what? There is lots of scope of showing creativity. ठीक है? So this is another. And third is philosophical. Philosophical में the thing is that I know is very less. और I know का मतलब where, better than I know I write that where fixed content is very less. It is what? It is highly philosophical. There can be variable model answers. Most questions. ठीक है? So again, it depends upon which suits your aptitude more. If you think that you are very creative enough, maybe philosophical can be very good subject for you. बट वहां पर एक रिस्क ये होता है, इवन you write your best, you cannot be sure that it is best according to the examiner as well. Philosophical mein, this is the biggest risk. However, in case of philosophical subjects, generally the advantage is they are short and they take less time compared to the others. Scientific की बात करें तो generally scientific में क्या होता है, you know or you don't know. So if you have very good educational background in that particular scientific subject, you have done your engineering or something like from IIT or other very elite institutions, you are very confident in suppose subjects like chemistry, physics, maths, maybe this can be the optional for you. Here the disadvantage that you will be facing is that you'll have to separately prepare for GS and you'll have to separately give lots of time to this subject, such type of subjects. Second important disadvantage is here competition is very elite level, because most of the people who would take such type of subjects would have passion about that subject. So there the competition is going to be very stiff. Semi-scientific, out of these two, I would say they are more safe choice with respect to everything. Isme you will always find that you will get questions where there is also more or less surety, fixed type of content, plus you can also show your creativity. Here one disadvantage generally you will face is that syllabus here also is large, like geography ka hi dekh lo. But advantage with respect to that is the overlapping in GS. Almost all of these semi-scientific social sciences, they have huge overlapping with GS syllabus. So there again, the disadvantage that you have is not like the scientific ones. Third advantage, you can say that normally very few people have background in these optionals. So most of the people who are taking, they are starting from fresh. Okay? So if they are starting from fresh, यहाँ पर your background becomes irrelevant. There is more of a level competition which is there. So suppose we are starting from today, most of you have no background in geography, and if you suppose choose to take geography as an optional, all of you are at the same starting line. Now it depends upon who is running faster, who is doing it better, who is following everything. Do you get what I am saying? So again, as I said, if you are very creative, you have lots of confidence in your creativity, maybe philosophical subjects can be very good for you. If you have been in very elite institutions, if you have a passion for your graduation subject, maybe the scientific optionals can be very good for you. If you are like majority of people जिनको पता भी नहीं था, जैसे मैं था, कि what I am choosing, which subjects I am choosing in my graduation and others, whether I am interested or not, then maybe semi-scientific subjects can be the best for you. Which again, you go back as we discussed, read NCERTs and choose which one will be best for you. समझ में आई बात? Tell me about the nature of the syllabus. And in nature of syllabus, I already talked about the overlapping with GS. ठीक है? Then educational background. I would say that in the contemporary pattern of examination, this educational background has limited relevancy. And limited relevancy, particularly I am saying when you are choosing, when your choice is with respect to your science or I would say scientific optionals. When you are choosing, there the relevancy is very high. Okay. When it comes to the other two categories, semi-scientific and philosophical, not very relevant, because in that case majority of the people will be starting, even those people who have background in, suppose किसी ने geography से ही masters कर रखा है, so there can be a thinking कि उनको फायदा होगा. Tell me, कोई एक ऐसा इंस्टीट्यूशन मुझे बताओ which you can compare the level of teaching which is given to you in IITs like IIT Kanpur. Can you compare the same level of teaching with any university in some social science? एक आध में भी हो सकता है, मे बी JNU or something, but even there is lots of limitations. Can you compare? Tell me. Very difficult. You will not find such level of universities which are at par with the level of education which is imparted, the technical education which is imparted in the institutions like IITs. Okay. So even so many students come to me and you know, जब geography से जैसे किसी student, बहुत सारे students आते हैं, they are coming from D School of Economics Delhi, or if you talk about JNU or Jamia, so many students are coming to me. When they attend the classes, they feel like, many of them have personally come to me and some of them are doing MPhil, PhD, and they say that I felt like there was a nirvana. We achieved nirvana in geography because we never thought that geography can also be taught like this. It can be studied like this. So there also, I would say that having the background advantage is not so much. More or less सब लोग एक जगह पर हैं. यूपीएससी के पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू से एक स्पेसिफिक रिक्वायरमेंट है which none of the universities would give you. That specific requirements which are there. ठीक है. So when it comes to educational background, the relevancy is more if you are choosing with respect to the scientific optionals, physics, chemistry, maths, some engineering based optionals. Otherwise it is not so much relevant in the other two categories. ठीक है. So that is another thing. Then another last thing we talked about is the selection trend. Selection trend. Now if you talk about the selection trend, I would say that it is variable. There is lots of variability you find. Like you will be finding, मैं geography का example देता हूँ. Geography as an optional till 2010 was very good optional. Very good optional, and there was always at least 4 to 5 selections in top 30, 4 से 5 जरूर मिलते थे. And as a result, majority of people started to take geography as an option. Then we come to a paradigm which beyond 2011, and I would say that this continued till somewhere around 2016. एक period आया when geography became a very bad option. And during this period, there was very low selections. Then from 2017 onwards, what has happened? That geography has improved and it has become a good optional. So every year there are toppers which are coming from here, rank 3 तक आया, 5 तक आया, and top 50 में at least वो 5 तो होते ही होते हैं. So देखो, what changed? Why this kind of variability? Simple reason ये था कि geography, 2008 was the year when syllabus was changed of the optional. Optional का syllabus change कर दिया गया. ठीक है? And lots of new topics were added that year. After this period, धीरे धीरे टाइम लगा, but UPSC began to make the papers very dynamic. Before this, the papers used to be less dynamic. Very straightforward question. Previous year papers उठा करके you see, and you will find that every year वो questions, difference between continental drift and plate tectonics theory, how plate tectonics theory is improvement over continental drift, difference between Davis and Penck, more or less fixed questions used to come. But from here what happened, the scenario began to change. In fact, it actually changed 2009 से ही हो गया था. ठीक है, so better I say that this actually was not 2010, it was till 2008 and here it was till 2009. ठीक है. So what happened during this period? Why the results were bad? Because the paper was very dynamic and there was problem with respect to what? Problem with respect to this second, availability of resources. The dynamism which was reflected in the papers was not reflected in the notes. Books were there, but as I said, books are basic reading material which are not oriented according to the exam. So here there was lack. There was a gap, big gap. Most of the traditional teachers who were famous teachers, they continued the old orientation. They remained in the old paradigm. They had no interest because उनके पास normally students भेड़ की तरह चले ही आ रहे थे. So what was the reason to take the pain? So this was the period when ultimately we find it was not performing. उसके बाद क्या हुआ? How it has improved? I would not say that कि मैं ही पूरी तरह से reason हूं, but मैं भी एक reason था. 2016 guidance starts, and one thing which I found was the gap which was there. I identified the gap which was there, which UPSC was asking and what was available in the market. And since 2016, I have been filling this gap through my optional subject, through my 500 plus course. And you see that from 2017, उससे पहले इस बीच में ज्योग्राफी में 300 क्रॉस करना नामुमकिन सी बात थी. पर्टिकुलरली 2012 से लेकर के 2016 तक एक भी साल में 300 प्लस मार्क्स नहीं गए. 2017 there were in total 4 students of my who crossed 300 plus marks, 327, 318, 316, 315 marks. 4 students were there. In fact, one more student was there for outside guidance who had got 300 marks. He or she, I don't remember, 301 marks. So what happened? यूपीएससी ने तो ऐसा था नहीं कि यूपीएससी ने यहाँ पर ज्योग्राफी को टारगेट किया एंड अगेन इट स्टॉप्ड टारगेटिंग फ्रॉम 2017. These are just conspiracy theories. जब people explain नहीं कर पाते what was the reason, they'll come up with lots of conspiracy theories. So what happened after 2017 onward? It was just that the content which was lacking, the resources which were lacking, students ultimately got those resources, and they are smart enough to utilize those resources and give you the desired results, and that is what happened. So when it comes to the performance trends, the selection trends, you should take these data with pinch of salt. A lot depends upon your interest in the subject. A lot depends upon the availability of resources. A lot depends upon other factors like how you performed on the examination date, how your performance was there in GS and other things. Because every year from every subject there will be toppers. There will be students who do well, who will get good marks. Whether you are there or not, that is other thing. So again, as I said, all this selection trends kind of information should be taken with a pinch of salt. You should try to analyze what was the reason. More so in a regime where optional is one. Now you don't have to prepare an optional optionals which are, there are two options you have to prepare. So one optional preparation is easier than preparing two optionals simultaneously. So if you have good interest, if you can develop good interest, if you can get good resources, you can be rest assured that optional is not going to be a barrier in the selection. Okay. So when you are choosing your optionals, these are the criterias which you will be taking into account. And lots of things related with geography we will see in the next class, which will be on the next Sunday. I will again talk about, there I will mostly talk about geography and इसमें overlapping वाला part specially discuss करूँगा. And we will see that how with respect to all these criteria which we are taking, geography can be a very interesting optionals for you. Okay, with lots of examples we will discuss. Okay, so this is, I would say, you keep these things in mind when you are going to choose your optionals. If you ask a geography teacher, Gayatri is asking here, is it geography optional is better? If you ask a geography teacher who loves his subject, tell me, Gayatri, what he is going to answer. Tell me, what is he going to answer? His answer would be in affirmative. He would definitely say yes.